We have a big summit going on today with the finance ministers, federal and provincial finance ministers, and there's the $64 million question, literally, how do we solve the housing crisis here in Toronto?
Well, I think, first of all, Kevin, if people are looking for a solution, that just says prices are suddenly going to drop by 20%, it's not likely to happen. And I'm not sure people want that to happen because it could trigger a lot of other things that Premier Wynne referred to last week as unintended consequences. But the bottom line is that I think everybody agrees when you see all these experts, and we've all seen our own groups of experts and many of the same people, there is speculation going on in our housing market, and that's not healthy. It distorts the marketplace. And so there's a limited range of options. I, for one, talk a lot about wanting to get going now on building new affordable rental accommodation, because if you don't start now, it won't be available in 2 or 3 years. But also, we're taking a look at a vacant property tax, and we sure think there's a need for more information, because right now we have no real records of whether people from outside the country are buying real estate in Toronto. There's a lot of talk about that. We have no real records, and we've got to start keeping them so that we at least can try and figure out when prices are going up or down in the future what's causing it.
This is what surprises me the most about housing prices in Toronto is the lack of information. We have all sorts of stats about everything, but we don't have stats on who's buying, are they living in the house, which country are they buying from, what city are they even buying from?
That's exactly right. And so, for example, all the talk about buyers from outside the country, it's mostly sort of anecdotal and a little bit from the real estate board, but the government itself has no records. When we came to try and find out about vacant properties, we have census information that says there are 65,000 vacant units, and imagine if that was half true, if you put all those back into the market and said they're now rentable by people, how that would help. But we don't know. And when we go to ask about hydro bills and water bills, because that's the best indication, obviously, if you haven't had a drop of water or a kilowatt of electricity in 6 months, it's probably empty. There's privacy issues, and there's this reason and that reason why it's not easy to find this kind of stuff out. So we've got to get around that and get more information on what's going on in housing.
Take a look at this stat from the Canadian Real Estate Association. This is out of Vancouver, where they have had the foreign buyers tax. Again, there's no real indication that we've got problems with foreign buyers here in Toronto. But in January, the price in Vancouver for an average house went from $1.03 million down to $878,000 for this January. That's a drop of almost 20%. Is that something that is doable here? And again, we say we don't know.
We're meeting today to talk about that, because I think the one thing that Mr. Morneau, when he called the meeting, believes that's important is that we sit together, there are no surprises, that we do things that are responsible and effective. And I think in Vancouver's case, it's a different market than Toronto, but I think what happened was psychologically people got the message that the kind of frenzy that was going on there shouldn't be sustained, and it's more psychological than it is that measure by itself kind of suddenly cooled off the housing market. So the key here in Toronto is going to be to have a similar meeting, have a similar discussion, try and do something responsible and effective, but that doesn't produce unintended consequences. If you think, there's a lot of jobs right now in Toronto that are dependent upon construction and so on. And look, I realize that housing prices are causing a lot of grief and lack of hope for younger people in particular, but you have to be very careful when governments are fiddling with a marketplace, to do it, in a very careful manner.
One final question. Mr. Morneau he couldn't put into the budget what he wanted to do to try and quash housing prices. What are you going to ask Mr. Sousa to put in the budget for the end of the month?
Well, I'm going to say that we've been exploring this vacant unit property tax. He's speculating on other things he may do, including out-of-country buyers and speculation. There's a lot of domestic speculation, I think, going on too. People who live here, who are not from outside the country, buying and selling and flipping houses.
Scalpers.
And, if you can try and discourage that sort of behavior, it really doesn't contribute to providing housing for anybody. It's a way people make money. It's not illegal, but it just is pushing prices up. So I suspect he's going to be very interested in talking about that today, because he's already been musing about it.